Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I have another pie recipe. I know, 2 pies almost in a row, but it is my husband's birthday and he really wants a butterscotch pie this year. Now, he raved about how amazing the banana cream pie turned out, and he asked me if I could make him a butterscotch version of it. So, of course, I'm gonna make him whatever he wants for his birthday. But he was very specific about this pie. I can't make the crust too thick because the banana cream pie was just a little too thick, but I prefer it that way. He wants it a little bit thinner. The butterscotch pie filling part, no request there. But on top of it, I'm not using real whipped cream. I'm going to use Dream Whip or Cool Whip, and it has to be little perfect dollops all around the top, covering it. And instead of sprinkling on some butterscotch chippets, they have to be placed on. It is his birthday. He's allowed to be very specific as to what he would like. So today, I'm going to show you guys how to make this butterscotch pie, and we're going to do it all from scratch, from making the pie crust, pie filling, decorating it. It's going to be amazing. I'm using sort of the same recipe or same sort of techniques as the buttercream. Oh my gosh, banana cream. Since it's going to be like a custard. We're going to figure this out today together. So let's get baking, because it's going to take me pretty much all day to do, because everything has to cool and set. So enough chit chat. Let's get baking. All right, first thing we're going to do is get the pie crust ready. So in a bowl, you're going to mix together 2 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and put that on your mixer and let it start mixing. Next, you're going to add 3/4 cups of whole lard to it, and make sure the lard is chopped up into little pieces, and you're going to mix it until it's kind of a crumbly texture. Alright, so once your pie dough is crumbly, you're going to add a splash of vanilla to it, and then you're also going to add some ice cold water. And you're going to just drizzle it in really slowly until your dough starts to come together, and it'll become very soft and also very sticky, and it'll pull away from the edge of the bowl. Then you know it's done and it's ready to be rolled out. Alright, so on your floured work surface, you're going to work the dough a little bit just so it's not too sticky, and then you're going to start rolling it out. Now this recipe technically could make 2 small pies, but my pie plate is gigantic, and this will fill the whole plate. So I rolled it out really thin as per my husband's request to make sure it's thin enough. Then the way I get this into the pie plate, and I find it works really well for me, is I fold it in half with a whole bunch of flour, fold it in half again, and it looks like this. Then I just take it and I put it into the pie plate, and the tip of it is kind of in the middle of the pie plate, so I know I have it centered. Then I just gently unfold it and kind of push it down into the pie plate and smooth out all the edges. Once I have it in the pie plate and smooth down and press down, I'm going to take a sharp knife and cut off some of the excess dough around the edge. Not too much of it, because where it's so thin, I find it shrinks really easy and it will not hold its shape well when I try and squish the edges. So I like to tuck the dough under the pie plate, under the edge of the pie plate a little bit, just to help it from shrinking. That's just my way of doing it. I know there's so many other versions of how you can keep your pie crust from shrinking. This just works for me and has for years, so I'm going to keep doing it this way. Next step is to take a fork and poke a whole bunch of holes all along the bottom of your pie crust, all around the edges. Then you're going to take 1 egg with 1 teaspoon of water, mix that together with a fork, and you're going to brush it onto the edges of your pie crust. You don't need to do the bottom or the center, just the top edges and down the sides just a little bit. Anywhere that the pie crust is going to be showing, you want it to look kind of golden and beautiful. All right, once this is done, then you're going to get it into the oven, preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. My oven seems to take forever to bake things, and it's probably going to take about a half hour to bake this until it's all golden brown and fully cooked and no soft, squishy, doughy center. I don't like making pie crust this thin for a few reasons. One, it went really flat. It didn't hold a nice edge around the pie shell. Two, there's a little hole in it, which I don't know why there's a little hole in it, but there is. And three, I just would prefer a thicker crust. Okay, so I took a knife and I'm just trimming the edges a little. I just want to make it look prettier. And this did take 30 minutes to bake. My oven obviously was very slow, but it took 30 minutes to bake. It's been cooling for 15. Even though the edges went flat, it still looks amazing. So next is the pie filling. Let's start by separating the eggs. You need 6 egg yolks for this recipe. So you're going to separate the eggs, yolks in one bowl, whites in the other. You don't need the whites for anything in this recipe, so you can use them for something else. The egg yolks, you're going to whisk them until your arm feels like it's going to fall off. And the egg yolks will almost double in size. Once they reach that, just set them aside for now. Next, I'm going to get the butterscotch ready. So in a small pot on my stove, I'm going to put 3/4 cups of sugar and 1/4 cup of water in it. And I'm going to stir it a few times until the sugar is kind of dissolved into the water. And I'm going to cook this on kind of a medium to high heat. And I'm going to let it cook until it turns kind of a dark amber color. Then I'm going to take it off the heat. All right, so the sugar and the water are starting to boil. I'm going to stir it every so often, but just leave it for now. While that is boiling, I'm going to get the other part of the butterscotch pie ready. So in a bigger pot, I'm going to mix 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar with 1/3 cup of cornstarch and 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and mix that all together. And then I'm going to set it aside for a few minutes until the butterscotch turns that dark amber color. So as you can see, the butterscotch right now is a very light amber color, like it's a honey color. And it darkens and gets darker very quickly. It goes from light to a medium, and then it'll turn a very dark amber color within seconds. And it goes from this like slow boil to a faster boil again. I don't know why, it's weird. Anyway, soon as it gets to like this medium amber color, you're supposed to remove it from the heat right away. All right, so it's pretty much at that point where I think I should probably remove it. So I'm going to take it off the stove, and I'm going to very, very carefully pour in 1/4 cup of heavy cream and mix that while I'm pouring it in. The amount of steam and how hot it is and how much it boils is crazy. So do this very carefully because it is ridiculously hot, and technically it is hot candy that you are stirring right now. So mix your cream in, keep mixing it, and it'll kind of get all smooth and creamy and It does still boil for a while, but as you're stirring it, that'll calm right down and it'll look so smooth and beautiful. All right, so while the butterscotch is cooling, let's get the rest of the pudding or the pie filling ready. So that brown sugar, cornstarch, and salt that we mixed in the larger pot, we're going to put that on the stove now on a medium heat, and I'm going to add in 2 cups of whole milk and 1 cup of heavy cream. Mix that all in and make sure you keep whisking it so that it gets well combined and it doesn't start getting all clumpy. And we're gonna let this sit and very slowly come to a boil. All right, so while I am waiting for the cream to come to a boil, I had tasted the butterscotch that I had just made, and it crystallized all around the edges and it kind of tastes burnt. I think I went past that perfect dark amber point. So I'm going to make it again. This time I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I'm still doing the 3/4 cups of sugar mixed with a 1/4 cup of water, and I'm only going to mix it a few times here at the beginning before I start to fully cook it, just to make sure the sugar is mixed into the water and kind of dissolved. Then I'm going to just leave it on the stove. I am not going to mix it or stir it anymore, other than before I turn it on. I'm going to scrape down the sides of the pot with a spatula just to make sure nothing is stuck on the side of the pot. And then I'm going to just leave it. I'm not going to whisk it. I'm not going to stir it. I'm going to leave it sitting here and let it come to a boil without touching it. Once it starts boiling, I'm going to watch it so carefully until it gets to a medium amber color. Not dark this time. I want like that medium color just before it starts turning dark. And I know that's a very fine timeline. You have to stand here and watch it and pull it off the stove as soon as it reaches that color. So for now, I'm not going to keep boiling the milk because I need this to cook first. All right, so while I'm waiting for this to boil, I'm going to mix a 1/4 cup of that heavy cream into a little bowl. And this time I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla to the cream and stir that together. And then I will pour that into the butterscotch when it's ready. But that's the few little minor changes that I'm doing to this butterscotch. I'm adding some vanilla to the cream, and I'm letting the sugar and water boil without stirring it, without mixing it, without swirling the pot, nothing. I am just letting it cook. Okay, this is my tip for it, to make it not crystallize. And what I have learned from making it now twice is don't stir it. Just let it cook, but watch it. Watch it with eagle eyes, okay? So as you can see, it's already starting to turn that beautiful honey color. And it's going to change very quickly, so keep an eye on it. So as you can see, I'm swirling the pot just a tiny bit so that you can kind of see the color a little better. And as I stand here and I watch it, if you look at the middle of the pot, you can see that the color is already starting to change to a darker, more golden color. So I would say within the next maybe 5 to 10 seconds, it's going to be ready. And I am standing here waiting to take it off of the stove. Hopefully you guys can see the change that's happening in this. But the middle got a lot darker. The edges are still more of that golden honey color rather than amber color. So it's ready. It's ready. I'm not letting it get any darker. So now I'm going to add the cream like I did to the last one. I'm going to slowly pour in that 1/4 cup of cream mixed with the vanilla. It's going to bubble up and boil a lot and get very steamy. but just keep mixing it and and until all the cream is mixed in, and give it a good whisking. Anyway, give it a good mix. And you'll notice that the bubbles will go away and you're left with a very smooth butterscotch. And it's beautiful. This time it did not crystallize on me. It's a better color, a better consistency. So whatever I did the first time, I did it wrong. This time it turned out. And it only took me 2 tries, better than the yeast that I have problems with. So it looks much better. Now I can continue on with the rest of this recipe. Okay, let's get back to the pudding part of the pie. So that milk and sugar that we had waited on, put it back on the stove, bring it to a boil, and as it boils, it'll become this beautiful, thick, pudding-like texture. Once it gets to that temperature, you're going to add your butterscotch that you just made. So pour that all in, and you're going to start whisking it, and keep whisking it while it's on a low temperature, and it'll change from this like pale color to a beautiful, creamy, gorgeous butterscotch color, and it smells amazing. So keep mixing it. It'll thicken right up like pudding, and then you're going to remove it from the stove. Next, we're going to take our pie filling, our pudding, and we're going to start tempering the eggs. So those 6 egg yolks that you were whisking, we're ready to use them. So little scoops at a time, you're going to put some of the butterscotch filling into the egg yolks. And you're going to do this very slowly, just a little cup at a time, and keep whisking and whisking until almost half of the pudding has been mixed in. You'll also notice that the bowl that the egg yolks are in will get very warm. Once the bowl is warm and half of the pudding mixture is mixed into the egg yolks, then you can take all of the egg yolks and pour it back into the pot and whisk it all together. All right, so put your pie filling back on the stove after you put the eggs back in it, and you're going to bring it up to a boil and let it boil until it thickens. And it'll thicken up quite a bit. Once it's thickened, then you're going to remove it from the heat, remove it from your stove, and we're going to mix in 1 tablespoon of butter and give it a good mix until that butter is completely melted and fully mixed in. Okay, so the butter is completely mixed in. I noticed that this is a little lumpy, not sure why, so I have a fine mesh sieve over top of a bowl, and I'm just going to pour all of the pudding through the sieve to take out any lumps that are in it, so that the pie will be so silky and smooth and be amazing. Now that there's no lumps in the pudding, I'm going to put it all into the pie shell. I'm just going to pour it right in. And remember that little hole I said I had? I used some of my burnt butterscotch because it was really, really thick and turned hard. And I just put a tiny little bit over top of that hole, and it sealed it. Perfect. Anyway, put your pie filling into the pie, pop any little air bubbles that are in it, and then you're going to take some plastic wrap and make sure to press it onto the surface of your pie. And this prevents it from developing a skin on the top. And just put your plastic wrap on it, and then it's going to go into the fridge to set for, I'm going to say, at least 4 hours to make sure it is fully set. All right, I'm ready to decorate this. So my husband wanted Cool Whip used instead of regular whipped cream, which is totally fine because I like that and I like whipped cream, but whipped cream melts really fast. So Cool Whip it is. And I am just going to put little dollops, ever so perfectly placed, all around the pie, the whole pie. And then I'm going to take butterscotch chippets and place 1 on every single dollop of Cool Whip. this is what he wanted. So I'm so happy he is going to love this. I love the idea he gave me for making it. So yeah, I'm gonna let you guys enjoy a little bit of music and watch me finish decorating this pie.
For the road, then you came back home. Why'd you let me go when all I have you know? Time they say will heal, but if you're still to keep below the pill of men who think they're real. You gotta find it, don't you hide it. You don't need the reminding. You gotta feel it, don't you steal it. You don't need all the deals in.
Ta-da! It is all done, and it looks amazing. Now the real test is when I get a piece of this out of here and see if it holds its shape. So, the anticipation, I tell you, it's just like, oh, I can't wait, and I broke it. Oops. That's what happens when it's too thin and a deep dish. Look at that. It came out perfect. It's not runny. It's not like melting or anything. Beautiful. So I'm going to cut a second piece and show you guys a close-up of it. I can tell you right now, like, we tasted it and I am not a fan. I don't care for butterscotch pie. I really didn't care for butterscotch pudding in general. I don't mind eating it, but it's not a go-to for me. This pie, though, has turned out amazing. My husband is so happy with it. I know it was a long process. It was also a bit of a learning process for me, making butterscotch. But I think overall, it turned out beautiful. So thank you guys so much for watching today and joining me for this video. I hope you'll hit the like button, subscribe, notification bells, all those wonderful buttons. And I will see you guys for whatever I decide to make next, which is probably going to be either cookies or another bread recipe.